Welcome back once again to Advanced Insight. I am once again on this exercise bike, willing and ready and able for another video for you. So, okay, y'all, let's go. This video is going to be about parenting styles and narcissistic children, whether they be sons or daughters. I am going to help navigate you, explain, and of course, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments and I will answer them. I lead by example, so I will be going through some of my experiences and experiences that I have seen with other parents dealing with their children, and you will be on the journey to the correct parenting style that is best for not just you, that narcissistic child. Okay, so let's go. Speaking my piece is a way of venting and helping others. So, narcissistic parenting styles, you want to have an empathetic parenting style mixed with a little strict narcissism. You gotta mix those traits up, right? So, for example, anger is a narcissistic trait. However, there will be appropriate times where your child needs to know that you're angry with them about their behaviors. So, and when I say get angry or you're angry, we're not branching off into child abuse. Okay, as a parent, I don't think we have a right to go murder our children and do horrific things to them because they're not behaving in the way that we think that they should. However, we do have a right to not provide for that child anymore. And I'm mainly speaking about older children. However, in some rare cases, the child can be younger. For example, the 10-year-old boy over the last several months that murdered his mother. He went in the safe and got her gun out. She secured her gun. He got the key to that safe, knew the combination or whatever. He broke into that safe, went in there without permission, got the gun, shot his mom, killed his mom. They're trying him as an adult. Okay. So in cases like that, there are some rare cases. However, in this video, I am speaking about teenagers, preferably older teenagers. However, some of you will experience this problem with your teenagers a little younger. And sometimes the reason you will experience when the teenager is a little younger, we're talking about a 13-year-old, that can be due to your parenting style was not strict enough. Your parenting style could have been a parenting style where it was child-led. There's actually a name for that parenting style. It's a parenting style where the child is leading the parent-child relationship as if they are the adult. So in some sense, with this parenting style, the parent is almost afraid of the child. They're being disciplined by the child. A lot of times in those type of parenting styles, the child at an early age will begin cussing this parent out. So it won't happen in their older teen years. Now, if your parenting style was a parent-led parenting style, the child will be fearful of violating your boundaries, a proper fear. You should fear your parent. I should be fearful enough of my mom and my grandmother and my dad or grandpa to where, and my uncles, to where I'm afraid to go punch one of them in their face. I should know once I decide to do that, there will be an outcome. An outcome that's unfavorable for me, however, favorable for me because I will be disciplined. And so I will be able to grow up, become an adult, have enough sense to be on this video with you to teach you something. I was not raised with a child-led parenting style. A lot of my background, some of it, most of it was parent-led. I knew not to go knock my grandmama upside the head. Okay. So I'm very grateful for that. There was some other loose parenting mixed in my parenting style from my grandmother, especially because of the neglect, because she was a workaholic. Okay. And that is a form of neglect. You know, back in the day, they didn't look at that as neglect if they're feeding you and clothing you. However, when you get up every day at 6 in the morning and you work until midnight and you're away from that child all of those hours, that is a form of neglect. But back in the day, my grandmother did not look at it in that way. However, one good thing I could say is she had reared me enough where I knew not to do certain things. I knew not to date a bunch of boys, get on drugs, go rob a bunch of stores, because all I saw her do was work and earn her money the righteous way, right? She had a business. So I wasn't seeing my grandmother neglecting me because I knew my grandmother was going out robbing a bunch of banks, okay? I didn't experience that experience. So in my case, I had an independent spirit even from early childhood. So I was one of those children that could be trusted. However, the parenting style with the neglect, as I went into my teenage years, it still backfired because I ended up being a young mother. Okay, so I'm telling you the whole story of how that turned out so you can understand any extreme will backfire eventually. Okay, and I suffered a lot of heartache, pain, emotional distress, financial distress. I ended up being in an abusive marriage, and I went down a different path because I was a young mom. Me being a young mom, I felt like I had to have a way to make it for myself, and so it contributed to my other choices. So neglecting your children under any circumstance, even if it's because you're out there working and making money for them, is not okay. So, however, I'm very grateful for my grandmother. I never missed a meal, never had to wear no clothes with no holes in it. I never was depressed because I didn't have my needs met. I had proper transportation. My grandmother did a wonderful job providing for me, and I have tried to do the same for my children, even though I don't have the great abundance of money that my grandmother had. However, I've had enough of it. Okay. I have not woke up and wondered, how am I going to feed myself this week? I never have wondered that. Okay. So don't get me wrong. There's been some times where, hey, we're low on food for today. Okay. So we got to eat the chicken noodle soup. However, that wasn't a regular in my life. Those were maybe isolated incidents. However, even if you just eat the chicken noodle soup for that night, you're still being fed. So I have raised children. I was in a statistically higher statistic because I was a single mom. So if you're raising males, I'm in that statistic where most likely, because I'm a single mom, my children, especially males, will end up with felonies, misdemeanors. They'll be in and out of jails, prisons. They won't take care of their children. They will have their children young, as I did by being a teenage dad. So culturally, I'm in that statistic where all of that is supposed to happen to me. However, when I raised my males, none of that happened. Okay. And this is why I had a parent-led parenting style. So my sons were in daycare after school, before school. They were at the community center once they outgrew the before and after school daycare age. when they were about 12 or 13. So I was one of those parents where I had the parent-led parenting style. So it's not child-led. The child's not leading it. So I didn't leave a lot of room for them to get in trouble. You're not allowed to stay out all night. You're not staying at people's homes on a regular to be messing around, getting raped or getting into sexual activities. Then you come back gay. Nothing against anyone that's gay. However, these were some of my concerns, so I didn't allow my sons to go on that path. However, with the parent-led parenting style, the problem with that parenting style, it's a good parenting style. However, you might get a rebellious one, right? So if one is rebellious, they will be more apt to the peer pressure. So remember, you're not just parenting your child. The world is too. So part of my parent-led parenting style, you're not allowed to smoke, drink, get on drugs. However, the rebellious teenager will and may want to do those things that you've taught them not to do. And so they will hook in the peer pressure. And if you've had a parent-led parenting style, they will wait to do that when they're almost legal age. So they might start this behavior right around 17, 16 years old. That's better than them starting it at 10, right? So if you have the child-led parenting style and the child's leading it, he or she is going to start doing that at 10 years old, right? So you want to buy some time here. So it's appropriate to have the parent-led parenting style. So with the rebellious teenager that goes out there with peer pressure, this is where you will really be tested on how empathetic you are. So say the child decides, because of the peer pressure, this group of kids or teenagers, sometimes they will be younger teenagers, 13, 14, 15. And a lot of times your older narcissistic teenager that's about 17 may follow them. But see, these will be children that they're following where their parents have a child-led parenting style. So see, they're not like your son or daughter when they was 13 and 14, where you were picking them up after work. If you got off work a little later, they were at a community center or with a family member and you were picking them up from there. These are children where they're allowed to roam wild like hyenas. And because you had a parent-led parenting style where the child submits to the parent in the appropriate way, for your rebellious older teenager, your older teenager will be attracted to those hyenas because, and yes, I call them not hyenas, and they mamas and daddies are hyenas too. I'm going to tell you why, because nobody that has any love for their child for real sits up at the house and let they 13, 14, and 15-year-old run around all day and night, smoke pot. I saw one situation where the lady, her daughter was right outside in the parking lot, smoking the pot, hanging out with a bunch of boys, and her mama sat up in the house with her man and wouldn't even come outside to check on the girl. I mean, find somewhere for this child to go. However, in that particular situation, that little girl would beat the crap out of her mama. This is what I found out through law enforcement. She beats her mama up. And of course, that's a child-led parenting style. Remember, I said earlier in this video that I would have had fear of doing that. And I'm grateful for that. I mean, I don't desire a mama and a grandmama and any sort of male figures, dad, uncles, or whatever, big cousins, that will let me knock the mess out of them. I just don't desire that. So these are some of the things I've seen. So a narcissistic child, potential psychopath, whatever he or she may be, is going to be attracted to those younger kids because they see freedom. They can stay out all night, smoke pot, take pills, drink, cuss, be involved in what you call copycat gangs. False flagging is another word that they use for it. I'm sorry, I mentioned the wrong word. False flagger or whatever they call it. So this older teenager that you has is attracted to that. So here's where you're being tested. So if it becomes abusive, because remember, peer pressure is peer pressure. So now your child sees a different lifestyle. And so they see, wow, she or he get to cuss their mama out, threaten their mama and daddy. I want that. So that narcissistic child of yours tries to bring that in your environment. And give them a couple of months, whatever, give them a chance. Don't change it. You got to kick rocks. You got to go. Because we don't do that here. Because you have a parent-led parenting style. And in the long run, this is what happens sometimes with one of these kids. It seems tough because now your son or daughter is in a shelter. However, they made it that way. They made it where you could not keep them in your home because it's a dangerous situation. However, some of those kids grow up and they lay on their mama's shoulder and their daddy's shoulder, hug their mamas and daddies or whomever raised them that didn't allow that behavior and say, thank you so much. Thank you for not allowing that. Now I got me a wife, some kids, I'm working. I didn't get that criminal record, mama or daddy, auntie, uncle, whomever raised them, cousin, whomever. This could have been a neighborhood kid you raised. Not everybody is raised by blood relatives. So in these cases, this narcissistic son or daughter, they're always attempting to reverse the parenting style because they're narcissistic or could be a psychopath or already a narcissist, and they want the power and control. So what happens is, even through like Instagrams and things like that, you will be saying things to them. They don't like what you say. You're saying that's dangerous, that's not safe. You're constantly wanting the best for this child, even though they may live outside the home. So what happens is that older teenager or young adult, they begin to try to attempt to parent you. So they will say things like, you're blocked for a week. Okay, 1 week block time. And it shouldn't feel right because now they're trying to take over. And that's the total process that's been going on anyway. They're trying to take over. They want to take over your home. They want to lead the home. However, the reason you don't allow them to do that is because they haven't earned that. You're leading your home because you earned that. You had a credit score, you worked, you were approved for a place, you had the appropriate income, and you worked for that credit score, and you worked for that job, and you were responsible, you were drug-free, you earned what you have, even if you're just renting. Whether you're renting or you own, you work for those situations. Because when you're renting from these major corporations, they have a basic credit score that needs to be attained. And normally the minimum, I think, is about 530 for your credit score. So if your credit score is 400, you automatically are disqualified to rent from these major corporations. Now, if you're renting from private owners, they sometimes will bypass that and allow you to rent based on your income. However, if you're the type of person like I am, where I can go rent from major corporations, even if I don't qualify right now to own, I had to have that minimum credit score of 530. Your son or daughter does not have that yet. They don't have a credit score at all. So You shouldn't be like letting them take over your home where it's child led when they ain't earned your place. So keep that in mind. Some parents are really scared of these kids. I don't think it's natural to be in a complete fear of anybody you gave birth to. Anybody you gave birth to should know that you about it. Okay. So that's how I was raised. And that's how in that area I raised my children. Okay. And I'm not talking about children that have been removed from you by another narcissist or psychopath. In these cases, you've raised these children from day one. Okay, now, if you have children and they were removed through the courts for no fault of your own due to toxic divorces and things like that, those children will follow a different path. And maybe I'll do another video about that. But this is primarily involving sons and daughters that you raised from day one. So one of the things I've done in my parenting style in these cases is if you got that rebellious one that goes out there with these bad peer pressures and things like that, following these bad peers, and there's any kind of criminal activity, I'm always on the victim side. So, okay, if I know you slashed the guy's tire or you had something to do with it, you were hanging out with the bad peers and one of your friends that you're hanging out with slashed the guy's tire on his bike. I was in a real life situation like this and I paid to get new tires on the victim's bike. So what I'm doing is I'm constantly showing my son, or it could be a daughter in your case, empathy. And you're constantly showing that child that you are not on their side. So you stand there with the person that got their bike slashed, you point at that child and you say, oh, he or she did that? And you protect the victim. You let your child know, you come over here and hit this man or woman, I got something for you. That's my parenting style. I am not going to show the narcissistic teenager or young adult that it's okay to do that shit to people. And the child will hate you for it. However, the child will respect you for it. And like I said, when they're later in their late 20s, early 30s, they'll never forget you for it. And you're teaching them empathy. So if they don't develop empathy naturally, having a feeling and a soul and a heart for others, being able to be put in that person's shoes, maybe they will at least develop cognitive empathy and be able to use the empathy from their mind to understand right from wrong. So you definitely have to stick with the parent-led parenting style. Now, in this process, this will look strict to other people, but in my case, I've had a better outcome. Remember, okay, if you have this parenting style and there's 5 children, one may go astray, but like I said, he'll come back around later. He or she may go astray, but the other 4 were saved. Now, if you have 5 children and you use the child-led parenting style, statistically, that is the most horrific parenting style that can be used. This is why you got boys and girls that are coming home telling their parents, now I'm a boy, now I'm a girl, I'm a transgender. Those are child-led parenting styles. And so what that parenting style does is it creates a lot of confusion. And I've done some studying on this, y'all. I'm not just saying it just because these are my opinions. I've done a little studying and I've done a little research, speaking with people in person, law enforcement, other professionals in business institutions that I've been affiliated with. So I've gotten some information on it. And law enforcement especially confirms that this is the worst parenting style. And as you're going through this process, law enforcement will confirm to you that what you are doing is the right thing. When you put little Johnny or little Mandy out, these are beautiful names. However, not put them out on the sidewalk now. I don't necessarily approve of making them worse. However, if he or she is going around doing thievery, robbing people, slashing people, bikes with their friends, and doing all this crap, they may need to sleep outside up the street at the schoolyard for a few weeks. Okay, that may be what they need. Maybe they don't deserve a home. He or she is 17, 18 years old. Get your sleeping bag and take your ass up there. Okay, because the answer is definitely not that child knowing that you know the horrific things that they're doing and they know that you let them come back in that house. You know he or she just robbed a bank and he robbed the bank or she robbed the bank at gunpoint and you let that child back in your home. Now you're going to be in the same place that your child is, and that's the penitentiary, because now you're harboring a fugitive. Now, if you don't know the person did the crime, you're not harboring a fugitive. But once you know that they did the crime, you're now liable because you're harboring somebody that you really should be turning into the police. So if you're not going to turn that child into the police, law enforcement will recommend that you not do that because of family violence. So if you're interacting with law enforcement, they will tell you, I suggest you don't identify these pictures of your child, your son or daughter, because we don't want you involved in family violence. Now, if you're dealing with law enforcement that don't give a care about you, they're not going to give you the correct advice. Another example of a parenting situation that I was in, because when you got this rebellious teenager, guess what? Your other teenagers in the home want to follow this one, right? So you end up with these short-term runaway situations. So one of them kind of know this ain't the right thing I'm supposed to be doing. This particular child could have more empathy than the other one does. So this son or daughter gets out there following their big brother or big sister, and they realize within a few weeks, I've gotten myself into the wrong situation. So in the state that I'm in, these children can go out and get these mentors. Once they turn 16, they can get a mentor, even if you don't approve of the mentor. Okay, so if this mentor encourages your child to become a transgender, in the state I'm in, on the West Coast, you can't do too much about it. Because legally at 16, the child has a right to pick a mentor. The child has a right to enter in counseling services on their own without you being involved as the parent. And what happens is sometimes the mentor has some flaws himself or herself. So in these situations, this child may stay gone from home 3 or 4 weeks or whatever. And so the mentor is working to try to get the child back in the home. And this is an actual situation I was in, y'all. And so the mentor is on the phone and they call a meeting. And in the meeting, we're supposed to discuss household rules. Because remember, the child has broke the household rules. Because remember, one of your household rules is that you come home after school and after other curricular activities, do your chores, have a bedtime. So if this teenager has been gone 3 weeks following their sibling that's narcissistic, then they've broken a major portion of the house rules, not just one day, 3 to 4 weeks at this point. So whenever anybody is telling you or asking you to come to a meeting, always ask, what is the meeting about? Always. unless you've already been emailed or sent a letter of what it's about. But if you have not been sent a letter, you have not been emailed, and this is a verbal meeting that's being called, ask what it's about. So I asked the mentor, well, what is the meeting about? Well, the meeting is about, this is what I was told, your child telling you about some new household rules. Literally. Now remember, I have a parent-led parenting style, not a child-led. So I said, oh, really? Wow, he wants to tell me the new rules. Okay. Mr. Mentor, let my son know that I will not be at that meeting, and let him know he need to bring his little ass home, and I'm waiting on him to come home. Always offer this particular child to come back. Okay, this child ain't cussing you and nothing like that. You want to save the life of this child, because remember, this is the one that's followed their sibling. So remember, when they're following a older narcissistic sibling, they're being victimized too. So don't leave this child in the street. This is the child that's really reaching for help. They kind of want to pull out the game. They kind of confused. They're going through some cognitive dissonance, right? So me on that phone, I said, well, because in my case, it was a son. In your case, it may be a daughter. So my response was, well, let him know that I'm still making the rules in this home, not him. And as of right now, he's breaking all the rules. Let him know I need to see him at home, and I don't approve of the behavior. And one of my questions was, well, what's one of the rules he would like to come up with? Well, one of the rules, this is the mentor, because the mentor is trying to switch my parenting style and basically make me have a bunch of kids and teenagers and young adults in the home that's eventually all going to be beating my ass, right? Because that's the result of the child-led parenting style. That child beats your ass, or worst case scenario, kills you. Because it's an unnatural relationship. The natural relationship should be parent-led. That's why you gave birth to them. That's why you got their mama pregnant so they could get here, right? So in this particular situation, I let the mentor know that, let them know no. Because what you don't want to do, the child does not need to see that you're desperate, that you can't live without him or her. That's the wrong thing for anybody to think. Anybody, even your own child, should know they can be away from you and you can live without them, if that had to be the situation. So in this case, I said no, because I asked, well, what's one of his rules? Well, one of his rules written down is he wants to, all the weekend days, he wants to come home at midnight. He wants to get up at 7 in the morning and leave, and he wants to come back at midnight. During the school days, he prefers to be home about 10 p.m. every night. So I said, whoa, that's what he want to do? Tell him to kick rocks. Tell him I need him back home. And the same rules I had before apply. Okay? Just let him know that. Now, however, I did implement some other age-appropriate rules. Like, okay, you don't want to go overboard. If you went to practice and you want to go to Taco Bell and get on the Wi-Fi and hang out at Taco Bell for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and you let me know that that's where you're at, you're right around the corner from the house, okay, that's fine. In that case, you'll be home between 4 and 6 p.m., and I approved of that behavior, so that's fine. I mean, in some of these parent-led parenting styles, you may find that you want to slack up and give the child a little bit more freedom, so you're not too strict where you are making them want to rebel and run off, if that makes sense. So I made a couple of changes like that. And, in this case, it may not have been Taco Bell per se, but allowing them to go to the library for an hour and a half to get on the computer, allowing them to go to the community center. I just named Taco Bell. It could be any restaurant. It could be they go to the school track or something. I just named a place, okay? And that was a place that could be close to home or whatever, right? So, they got a lot of places. So I'm not, supporting eating at Taco Bell. If you don't like fast food, I'm not doing any of that as a disclaimer. I'm just naming a location. Maybe the child didn't even order a taco. They just order something to drink and they just sit there. So just being reasonable, because this child is 16 and up now. They're no longer 12. You understand what I'm saying? So you don't want to have it so tight and so rigid and strict that it makes them want to run off. So this is the situation I was in. So, and ultimately that child returned home. Okay. Because I continued with the parenting-led parenting style. Don't let these mentors mess you up and you be desperate for these kids and you reverse the game, because you're going to have a nightmare on your hand. And the other rebellious teenager is now a young adult and resides at another location. And see, I moved out young. So that's not always a bad thing. I mean, once somebody becomes a legal adult and they don't want to obey the rules and things, and they want to be a different person, and they grown now. Legally, they're grown. They're prison age. They could go to a male or female prison. If it's a girl, they could go to a female prison. So in those cases, parenting in the same way that it was is over, because you've pretty much raised them. They're a young adult and they have to survive for themselves. They're job age now. They can get a job. You don't no longer have to legally support this particular child, because under the legal realm, they are now an adult. Rebellious adults and teenagers, they create havoc and mayhem and chaos and disruption and distraction in the home. And they do not belong at home with other minors that are not adults yet. They are also not healthy to have around other young adult males or females that are in the home. It goes back to what I said earlier. You want to say 4 out of the 5. Okay? But if you have that child-led parenting style, you're going to lose them all. Because this one child decides to become the leader, and he takes or she takes all of your other children down this destructive path. This is how you have situations where you have 7 brothers and all of them end up in prisons because it was child-led, or sometimes it was parent-led. In some cases it was parent-led, but what happened was the parent was dysfunctional, in full-blown alcoholism, and was not available emotionally to correct the situation. So it became child-led due to that mother or father's dysfunctional, out of control alcoholism problem. Okay, so there's cases like that. I've seen a case like that, and I witnessed to that in one particular case when I was growing up as a child. So this is just my advice on some parenting. I encourage you. You can do this. You are a hero in this case, and I mean a hero. And you can do anything you want to do. And remember, when you are a mother or father, you are a hero. and you want to have a parent-led parenting style so that your son or daughter becomes a hero one day also. And you're going to continue to teach them structure, leadership, boundaries, and righteousness. I love y'all so much. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please leave a comment. I love your comments. And I hope that as I get comfortable with you and you get comfortable with me, I can share some of my experiences so that you can know you can do it. Go, parents. I love y'all. Thank you.